The ship moved slowly toward the massive station that floated in the darkness of space. Admiral Tae-hyun stood near the window and watched as the Galactic Assembly Station grew larger and larger. It was the biggest thing humans had ever seen. The station was home to 3,000 different alien species. They came here to make laws, to trade, and to decide the future of the galaxy. Ambassador Yuna Park stood beside him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm face. She had spent 20 years talking to aliens, learning their languages, and understanding their ways. But today, something felt wrong. She could feel it in her bones. They called this meeting very quickly, she said. No warning, no agenda. That is not normal, Tae nodded. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. But even he knew that the Galactic Assembly never did anything quickly. They argued for years about small things. For them to call an emergency meeting meant something big was happening. The human delegation was 200 people. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and advisors. They represented all of Earth and its 12 colony worlds. Humanity had been part of the assembly for only 47 years. In galactic terms, they were babies. Most species had been members for thousands of years. The ship docked, and the humans walked through long corridors made of strange metals and glowing crystals. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some were tall and thin like walking sticks. Others were short and round like living balls. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. The galaxy was full of strange and wonderful life, but none of them looked at the humans with respect. They looked at them like they were insects. Small, weak, unimportant. The main chamber of the assembly was enormous. It could hold millions of beings. Floating platforms carried delegates from different species to their assigned places. The humans were placed near the back, far from the center where important decisions were made. At the center stood High Speaker Oros. He was a massive creature, like a serpent made of dark purple scales. He was over 1,000 years old and had led the assembly for centuries. His voice was deep and cold, and when he spoke, everyone listened. This emergency session will now begin, Oros announced. His words echoed through the chamber. The Valori hegemony and the Morath collective have brought forward a proposal. Tae watched as two groups of aliens moved to the speaking platform. The Valori were tall beings made of living crystal. They glowed with soft blue light and thought themselves the most beautiful species in the galaxy. The Morath were insectoid creatures with multiple arms and large black eyes. They could read minds and often knew what others were thinking before they spoke. A Valori elder raised his crystalline arm. We have studied the expansion patterns of the younger species, he said. His voice was like wind chimes. The humans have taken 17 worlds in the outer rim. They lack the wisdom to use these resources properly. We propose that these worlds be redistributed to older, more capable species. Yuna's hands tightened into fists. She kept her face calm, but inside, anger burned like fire. Those worlds had been empty when humans found them. They had built cities there. Children had been born there. A Morath spoke next, his voice buzzing inside everyone's mind. The humans breed quickly and spread without thought. If left unchecked, they will consume resources that rightfully belong to established civilizations. We must act now, before it is too late. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. Species that had never spoken to each other nodded together. They all agreed on one thing. Humans were a problem. We call for a vote, the Valori elder said. Yuna stood up. I request the right to speak on behalf of humanity. High Speaker Oros turned his massive head toward her. His eyes were like black pools of oil. Denied, he said simply. Probationary species do not have speaking rights during emergency sessions. This is the law. But this vote directly affects our people, Yuna said, her voice strong and clear. You cannot take our homes without letting us speak. We can, Oros replied. And we will. Young species listen. They do not speak. This is how it has always been. This is how it will always be. The vote happened quickly. 2,847 species voted yes. Only 153 voted no. The motion passed. 17 human worlds would be taken and given to others. Admiral Tae felt something break inside him. Not his spirit, but his patience. For 47 years, humans had followed every rule. They had been polite. They had been humble. They had accepted every insult with a smile. And this was how the galaxy repaid them. He looked at Yuna. She looked back at him. No words were needed. They understood each other perfectly. Yuna gave a small nod. Tay raised his hand. All 200 members of the human delegation saw it. They had trained for this. They had hoped it would never come. But they were ready. Every single human stood up at the same time. The movement was perfect. Synchronized. Like they were one being with 200 bodies. The chamber fell silent. Millions of eyes turned to watch. Without saying a word, the humans began to walk. They walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. No one ran. No one shouted. They simply left. High Speaker Oros watched them go. For the first time in centuries, he felt something strange in his ancient heart. He did not know what it was. Later, he would learn that it was fear. Where are they going? A Valori asked. They are leaving. A Morath answered, his mind reading the emotions of the departing humans. He shivered. They are not coming back. Let them go. Oros said, his voice dismissive. They are weak. They are young. They will return when they realize they cannot survive without us. But as the last human disappeared through the doors, something shifted in the galaxy. It was small at first, like the first crack in a great dam. No one noticed it then, but soon, very soon, that crack would grow, and when the dam finally broke, the galaxy would drown in its own arrogance. The humans did not look back. They had come to the assembly seeking friendship. They had found only contempt. Now, they would show the galaxy what humanity truly was, and the galaxy was not ready. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species with access to communication networks heard the same story. The humans had walked out of the Galactic Assembly. They had refused to accept the vote. They had left without permission. Most species laughed when they heard it. On the crystal world of Valori Prime, the elders gathered in their shining halls and made jokes about the foolish young species. They will return within a week, one said. They cannot survive without our guidance, without our trade, without our protection. The Morath Collective held a different view. Their mind readers had felt the emotions of the humans as they left. Cold. Controlled. Dangerous. But the Morath leaders dismissed these warnings. Humans were small. Humans were weak. Humans lived for barely 100 years. What could such creatures possibly do? Scholar Mina Kang sat aboard the research vessel Horizon, far from Earth. She was a historian who studied alien cultures. Now, she found herself documenting something new. She watched alien broadcasts from dozens of different worlds, all saying the same thing. Humans were throwing a tantrum. Humans would come crawling back. Humans were nothing. Mina recorded everything. She knew that one day, these recordings would be important. One day, the galaxy would want to remember how wrong it had been. Back on Earth, the government moved quickly. Orders went out to every human ship, every colony, every research station. Come home. Pull back. Leave nothing behind that cannot be replaced. Captain Dae Sung commanded the carrier Iron Wake. He was stationed at a joint defense post with 3 other species when the orders came. He read them twice to make sure he understood. We are leaving? His second officer asked. Just like that? Just like that, Dae replied. He began the shutdown procedures. We gave them 47 years of loyalty. They took our worlds without even letting us speak. I think we have done enough. The other species at the defense post watched in confusion as the human ships powered up and flew away. They called after them on the radio. They demanded explanations. The humans did not answer. General Hana 1 stood in the command center deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Screens covered every wall, showing the movement of every human ship in the galaxy. Thousands of vessels were returning home. It was the largest military withdrawal in human history. Her aide approached with a message from Captain Dae Sung. He was questioning the orders. Hana read the message and typed a simple reply. We gave them peace. They chose otherwise. She sent the message and returned to her screens. There was much work to do. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 3 weeks passed. The laughter stopped. The Valori were the first to notice. Their medical centers were running low on a special compound that only humans produced. It was used to treat a common disease that killed thousands of Valori every year. They had never bothered to learn how to make it themselves. Why would they? The humans were always happy to trade, but now the humans were gone, and the medicine was running out. The Morath faced a different problem. Their ships used navigation systems built by human engineers. These systems were the best in the galaxy. Fast, accurate, reliable, but without human technicians to maintain them, the systems began to fail. Morath ships started getting lost. Some disappeared forever into the darkness between stars. Across the galaxy, things began to fall apart. Species that had never traded directly with Earth discovered that their trading partners had traded with Earth. The supply chains that kept the galaxy running were more connected than anyone had realized, and humans were at the center of many of them. A Valori ambassador sent a message to Earth. He demanded that humans return to their posts and resume normal operations. The message was polite but firm. He expected the humans to obey. Earth did not reply. Another message was sent. This one was angry. It accused humans of breaking galactic law. It threatened punishment. Earth did not reply. A third message was sent. This one was desperate. It begged humans to reconsider. It offered small changes to the vote. Perhaps humans could keep some of their worlds. Earth did not reply. The silence was more frightening than any threat could have been. The galaxy had expected humans to shout, to argue, to fight. They had not expected silence. They did not know what to do with silence. On the horizon, Mina Kang continued her research. She noticed something strange in the data. Human ships were not just going home. They were moving into formations. Military formations. Defensive positions were being established around every human world. She sent a message to her superiors on Earth. What is happening? What are we preparing for? The reply came from General Hana Wan herself. It was only one sentence. We are preparing for everything. Mina stared at the message for a long time. Then she returned to her work. She was a scholar. Her job was to watch and record. So that is what she would do. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly, High Speaker Oros held an emergency meeting. Species from across the galaxy demanded answers. Why were the humans not responding? What were they planning? How could the Assembly fix this problem? Oros had no answers. For the first time in his 1,000 years of life, he faced a situation he did not understand. The rules said that young species always obeyed. The rules said that small species always needed the protection of larger ones. The rules said that humanity should have returned by now, begging for forgiveness. But humans were not following the rules, and somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Taehyun stood on the bridge of a ship that officially did not exist. He looked at the stars and smiled. They think we need them, he said quietly. They are about to learn the truth. The truth was simple. Humans had never needed the galaxy. The galaxy had needed humans. And now, for the first time, the galaxy was about to find out what happened when humans stopped being polite. The waiting was over. The real game was about to begin. Fear spread through the galaxy like a cold wind. The laughter was gone. The jokes were gone. Now, every species wanted to know the same thing. Who were the humans, really? What had they missed? What did they not know? The answers came slowly, and each answer was more terrifying than the last. Archivist Q Jin of the Morath Collective was the first to dig deep into human history. He spent days reading old records, watching ancient broadcasts, and studying everything humanity had shared with the galaxy. Then he went looking for what they had not shared. What he found made his blood run cold. Earth was not a normal planet. Earth was a death world. Most species evolved on gentle planets, worlds with stable climates, calm weather, and peaceful ecosystems. The Valori came from a world of eternal spring. The Morath came from a world of quiet forests. These were places where life was easy, where survival was not a daily struggle. Earth was different. Earth had gravity strong enough to crush bones. It had weather that could change from calm to deadly in minutes. It had earthquakes that swallowed cities. It had storms that covered entire continents. It had diseases that mutated so fast that no cure could stop them for long. And the creatures that lived on Earth were monsters. The oceans were filled with predators that could tear apart any living thing. The land was covered with animals that hunted in packs, set traps, and killed for pleasure. Even the smallest creatures carried poisons that could kill in seconds. Kyujin read about creatures called sharks and crocodiles and lions. He read about insects that drank blood and plants that ate flesh. He read about diseases with names like plague and cancer and virus. He read until he could read no more. Then he understood. Humans had not evolved to be the strongest. They had evolved to survive everything. They had been forged in a furnace of constant death, and they had crawled out of that furnace with one simple rule burned into their souls: never give up, never surrender, and never stop fighting. This information spread quickly through the galaxy, but it was only the beginning. Intelligence agencies across the galaxy began their own investigations. What they found was even more disturbing. The humans had been lying. Their population was not 12 billion. That was just the official number, the one they showed to the galaxy. The real number was closer to 90 billion. Hidden colonies existed in systems that the galaxy had never mapped. Underground cities had been built on worlds that seemed empty. Humans had been quietly spreading for decades, and no one had noticed. Their ships were not civilian vessels. Every human ship, from the smallest cargo transport to the largest passenger liner, carried military-grade armor and weapons. They could transform from peaceful traders to deadly warships in minutes. Their soldiers were not ordinary. The Morath had captured images of human military training. They watched humans run for days without rest. They watched humans fight in temperatures that would kill other species. They watched humans break bones and keep fighting, get shot and keep running, face certain death and keep moving forward. Lieutenant Sora Beck served at a hidden outpost near the edge of the galaxy. She had been stationed there for 3 years, watching and waiting. Her job was simple: make sure no one found what was hidden nearby. One day, alien probes finally got close enough to see. They sent images back to their homeworlds. Images of ships, hundreds of ships, 700 massive warships that officially did not exist. This was the Aegis fleet, humanity's secret weapon, built in hidden shipyards, crewed by soldiers who had volunteered for missions they could never speak about, ready for a war that everyone had hoped would never come. On Valori Prime, the Crystal Elders gathered in fear. One of their ambassadors had sent an urgent message to High Speaker Oros. The message was simple but horrifying. They were not weak. They were patient. The Morath Collective held emergency meetings that lasted for days. Their mind readers had finally understood what they had felt when the humans left the assembly. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was cold, calculated determination. The humans had been planning this for years, perhaps for decades. They had known that one day, the galaxy would turn against them, and they had prepared. Scholar Mina Kang received new data aboard the horizon. She stared at the numbers in disbelief. The military power of humanity was not small. It was not moderate. It was enormous. If the humans wanted to fight, they could challenge any species in the galaxy, perhaps all of them together. But that was not the most frightening part. The most frightening part was that humans had hidden all of this. For 47 years, they had played the role of the weak young species. They had accepted insults and smiled. They had followed every rule and bowed to every demand, all while building an empire in the shadows. Why? Why would any species hide such power? The answer came to Mina slowly. Humans had hoped they would never need to use it. They had wanted peace. They had wanted friendship. They had given the galaxy every chance to treat them fairly. The galaxy had failed the test. Now, the mask was coming off. The gentle humans that the galaxy had known were gone. In their place stood something older, something harder, something that had survived a death world and conquered the stars. In the command center beneath Korea, General Hana Won watched the reports come in. The galaxy knew the truth now. There was no point in hiding anymore. She opened a communication channel to all human forces. "The time for patience is over," she said. Her voice was calm but hard as iron. "Show them who we are." Across the galaxy, human ships dropped their disguises. Weapons, systems came online. Armor plates extended. Engines roared to full power. The sleeping giant was waking up, and the galaxy trembled. The Galactic Assembly sent a peace delegation to Earth. It was the first time in history that the Assembly had asked for peace from a younger species. The irony was not lost on anyone. The delegation arrived at Luna Station, a massive base on Earth's moon. They expected to negotiate with desperate humans who would accept any deal to return to galactic society. They were wrong. Ambassador Wu Jiang met them in a simple white room. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that revealed nothing. He had spent his entire life preparing for moments like this, moments when words were more powerful than weapons. The alien delegates sat across from him. There were representatives from the Valori, the Morath, and a dozen other species. They brought gifts. They brought apologies. They brought offers that would have seemed generous a month ago. We have reconsidered the vote, the Valori representative said. His crystal body glowed nervously. Humanity may keep its colonies. All of them. We will also grant you full membership in the Assembly, with complete voting rights. Wu listened without expression. When the Valori finished, Wu spoke one word. No. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. We offer trade agreements. A Morath added quickly. Better terms than any species has ever received. You will have access to all our markets, all our technology, all our resources. No, Wu said again. Then what do you want? The Valori demanded. His glow turned red with frustration. Name your price. We will pay it. Wu leaned forward slightly. His voice was soft but carried the weight of mountains. You taught us what the galaxy truly thinks of us. You showed us that we would never be equals in your assembly. We have learned this lesson well. Now, you will learn about us. He stood up. The meeting was over. Wait, Amorath called out. What are you planning? What will you do? Wu paused at the door. He looked back at the frightened aliens. Watch and see, he said. Then he left. On Earth, preparations were already underway. Dr. Nario worked in a secret facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. She led Project Vanguard, the most ambitious military program in human history. Her team had built ships that could outrun anything in the galaxy, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could stop any attack. She stood before her greatest creation, the Vanguard-class battleship. It was 3 kilometers long, black as the void between stars, and armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. There were 50 of them now, ready to fly. Are they operational? General Hana 1 asked through the communication screen. Ready on your command. Nari replied. But General, these ships are designed to win wars, not to keep peace. I know, Hana said. Her face was hard. But sometimes, you must be ready for war to prevent one. We are not going to attack. Not yet. We are going to remind them what happens when you threaten our people. The United Earth Council met in Seoul. Leaders from every human nation and colony gathered to make the most important decision in their species' history. Would they fight? Would they negotiate? Would they retreat? President Ki-yun listened to every argument. Some wanted immediate war. Others wanted to give peace another chance. The debate lasted for hours. Finally, Ki raised her hand. The room fell silent. We will not start a war, she said. But we will not hide anymore. We will show the galaxy our true strength. If they choose to leave us alone, we will leave them alone. If they choose to fight, we will end them. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. The first war fleet jumped to the edge of Valori space within hours. 700 ships appeared out of nothing. They hung in the darkness like a wall of steel and death. Captain Dae-sung commanded one of the lead ships. He had never wanted war. He had joined the fleet to explore, to discover, to protect. But he was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. Open a communication channel, he said. All frequencies. The channel opened. His message would be heard by every being in the Valori system. Billions of creatures would hear his words. People of Valori, Dae said. His voice was calm and cold. We are not here to attack. We are here to remind you of something you have forgotten. We remember every insult, every denied vote, every stolen colony. We remember. He paused to let the words sink in. We are not your enemies. We never wanted to be. But you have pushed us to this point. Now, you will live with the consequences. These ships will remain here, watching, waiting. If you threaten any human, anywhere in the galaxy, we will return, and we will not be so patient. The channel closed. On Valori Prime, chaos erupted. Billions of crystal beings fled their homes, rushing to ships, trying to escape to anywhere else. The skies filled with vessels running in all directions. Parents grabbed children. The rich abandoned the poor. Everyone was afraid, but the humans did not fire. They simply sat there, watching. In some ways, that was worse. A battle would have been quick. Terror was slow. Terror gave them time to think about what they had done. Time to imagine what the humans might do. Time to feel the weight of their own arrogance crushing them. Lieutenant Sora Bake watched the chaos from her ship. She felt no joy in the fear of others. She felt only sadness. It did not have to be this way. If the galaxy had simply treated humans fairly, none of this would have happened. Do you think they understand now? Her co-pilot asked. Some of them, Sora replied. The rest will learn soon enough. Admiral Taehyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn. He watched the Valori system burn with fear, not fire. He had spent his whole life hoping that humanity would never need to show its true face. That hope was dead now. What are your orders, Admiral? His first officer asked. Tae looked at the stars. So many worlds. So many species. So much potential for peace or war. Hold position, he said. Let them look at us. Let them really see us for the first time. And let them decide what happens next. The galaxy held its breath. The humans waited. And somewhere, in the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly, High Speaker Oros realized that the rules he had followed for 1,000 years no longer applied. The universe had changed, and there was no going back. The galaxy descended into chaos, not from human attack, but from the fear of one. Species that had stood together for millennia now turned on each other. Old alliances shattered like glass. Trust disappeared like smoke in the wind. The Valori blamed the Morath for pushing the vote. The Morath blamed the Valori for starting it. Smaller species blamed larger ones for ignoring the warnings. Everyone blamed everyone else. And at the center of it all, the humans sat in silence, watching the galaxy tear itself apart. High Speaker Oros watched his assembly crumble. Species withdrew their membership every day. Trade agreements collapsed. Defense pacts fell apart. The order he had maintained for centuries was dying, and he could not stop it. He had to make things right. He was the one who had dismissed the humans. He was the one who had refused to let them speak. The guilt weighed on him like a mountain. There was only one thing left to do. Oros traveled to Earth alone. His ship entered the Sol system slowly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. Human ships surrounded him immediately. They escorted him to Earth like guards escorting a prisoner. He did not complain. He had no right to complain. President Ki-yeon agreed to meet him in Seoul. She chose her office overlooking the Han River. It was a simple room with simple furniture. No gold, no crystal, no symbols of power, just a desk, some chairs, and a window with a view of water and trees. Oros entered the room and lowered his massive body as close to the floor as he could. It was the deepest bow his species could make, a bow of total surrender. I have come to beg for mercy, he said. His voice was different now. Tired, old, broken. On behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I apologize for our actions. We were wrong. We were arrogant. We treated you like insects when we should have treated you like equals. Ki watched him without expression. She let the silence stretch on. She wanted him to feel the weight of it, the weight that humans had carried for 47 years. What do you offer? She finally asked. Oros lifted his head slightly. Everything. Full seats on the High Council. Unlimited territorial expansion. Reparations for the damage we have caused. You can have anything. Name your price, and it is yours. Ki stood up and walked to the window. She looked at the river below. Children were playing on the banks. Families were having picnics. Life continued. Simple and beautiful. Despite everything happening among the stars. You misunderstand us, she said softly. We did not leave because we wanted war. We left because you showed us we would never be equals in your assembly. No amount of seats or territory will change that. Your assembly was built on the idea that some species are better than others. We do not accept that idea. Oros lowered his head again. Then what will you do? Destroy us? Conquer us? We cannot stop you. We know this now. Ki turned to face him. Her eyes were hard but not cruel. There was something in them that Oros did not recognize at first. Later, he would understand that it was wisdom. We will build our own, she said. A new order. The Terran Concordat. It will be based on one simple principle. Every species is equal. No more old species and young species. No more strong species and weak species. Just equals. Working together for the good of all. She walked back to her desk and sat down. Any species that wishes to join us in true partnership is welcome. Any that threatens us will be reminded why our ancestors survived a world that tried to kill them every single day. Oros stared at her. You would accept us? After everything we did? If you come as equals, yes, Ki replied. We do not hold grudges against species. Only against actions. If your actions change, so will our response. Oros was silent for a long time. He had ruled the galaxy for centuries. He had made laws and broken worlds. He had thought himself wise beyond measure. But this small human, this creature who lived for barely 100 years, had shown him something he had never understood. True strength was not about domination. It was about knowing when to fight and when to forgive. I will bring your message to the assembly, Oros said. Or what remains of it? 6 months later, the Terran Concordat was officially established. 47 species had already joined. Some were small species that the old assembly had ignored. Others were larger species that had seen the writing on the wall. All came seeking the one thing the assembly had never offered. True equality. The Galactic Assembly still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Most species had left. Those that remained fought constantly over scraps of power. Oros had resigned as High Speaker. He spent his final years writing a history of his failures, hoping that future generations would learn from his mistakes. Human ships patrolled the borders of Concordat space. They were not conquerors. They were protectors. They defended the weak and welcomed the lost. They remembered what it felt like to be dismissed and ignored. And they made sure no one in their territory would feel that way again. Admiral Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn. He was older now. Gray touched his temples, but his eyes were still sharp, and his heart was still strong. Admiral, his communications officer said, we have a Valori refugee convoy requesting asylum. They fled their homeworld when the government collapsed. Families, children. They have nowhere else to go. Tae looked at the screen. The convoy was small. A few dozen ships carrying a few thousand beings. These were not the proud crystal elders who had voted to take human worlds. These were ordinary people who had done nothing wrong, people who had suffered because of decisions made by others. Grant them asylum, Tae said. Send medical ships to help. Make sure the children are fed and warm. The officer hesitated. Sir, the Valori were our enemies. Tae shook his head. The Valori government was our enemy. These are just people. People deserve compassion. That is what makes us human. The convoy was welcomed into Concordat space. The refugees were given homes and food and medicine. Their children were given schools. Their elders were given dignity. It was not forgiveness. Forgiveness would take time. But it was a beginning. Scholar Mina Kang finished her final book. She had documented everything from the moment the humans walked out of the assembly to the founding of the Concordat. The book was called The Day We Stopped Being Quiet. It became required reading for every species in the Concordat. Ambassador Yuna Park retired to a small house by the sea in Korea. She had spent her life talking to aliens. Now, she spent her days watching the waves and playing with her grandchildren. Sometimes, late at night, she would look up at the stars and smile. They had done it. They had built something better. General Hana I became the first supreme commander of the Concordat Defense Force. Under her leadership, No member species was ever attacked. No child ever grew up in fear of invasion. She was hard and cold and sometimes cruel, but she kept her people safe. When she died, she was buried with full honors. The funeral was attended by beings from 100 different worlds. Dr. Nario continued her research. Her weapons were never used. She hoped they never would be. But she kept them ready, just in case. Because hope was not a strategy, and peace required strength. Captain Dae Sung, Lieutenant Sora Baek, and all the other soldiers who had served in those dark days became legends. Their names were taught in schools. Their stories were told around fires. They were remembered not as conquerors, but as protectors, not as killers, but as guardians. And President Ki Yon, who had faced down an ancient empire with nothing but words and will, was remembered as the mother of the Concordat. Her statue stood in the capital of every member world. Her words were carved into stone. Every species is equal. The galaxy had changed. The old order was gone. In its place stood something new, something better, something human, because humans did not forget. But they also did not become the monsters others expected them to be. They became something far more dangerous. They became the example, and the galaxy would never be the same again.